The HK416 is one of the most powerful guns in Escape from Tarkov, especially in the late game. But the question I get asked often is it possible to build this gun for a budget? So today we're going to be talking about the best builds from the lowest tier all the way up to some of my personal builds and why this gun is one of the personal favorites in the Tarkov meta right now. So why would you build a HK over an M4? Well, there are actually a few differences here. The first one you need to realize is that the ergo is different. You can actually get the M4 ergo to be slightly better. The vertical recoil on the HK will be worse than the M4, even the best built version of the gun, and the horizontal recoil will be slightly higher. But what you are getting is 50 rounds per minute faster fire rate, as well as a higher muzzle velocity, making the HK one of the fastest firing guns in Tarkov right now, which is absolutely nuts. Now, as you can see here, we dumped almost a full 60 rounder into Gluhar within a second or so. This thing actually is insane. But you can still build this gun on a budget, and a lot of people don't realize how. So let's jump into compensators straight away, and we can look at some of the different ones here. Obviously, you got the Furfran's muzzle brake, which is one of the best compensators for 5.56. However, the problem with going loud is that you have a lot of muzzle flash, but it is the cheapest way to get that recoil down. For grips, you can look at something like the Magpul AFG grip, or if you have a little bit more money, the Hera arms, but we'll get into that later. For the stock, I would always go for MOE, and I always throw a butt pad on the back of that stock because it's always the best bang for buck, ergo and recoil reduction stock right now. If we look at the different scopes, I would get something nice and high like an XPS EOTech, but basically anything that sits above that muzzle, especially if you are going loud. The crazy part about the HK is that the suppressed variants are actually better tthan the loud. So the KAC QDSS suppressor is actually a really good combo with that compensator. Now obviously it depends on what one you can get at the time, but it's one of the cheapest, especially the FDE variant, coming at 110,000 rubles. But before you build this gun, please, I would actually spend a little bit of extra money here and just follow a few simple tips. The first one would definitely be upgrade to the Hera Arms CQR tactical grip. If you can't buy it from a mechanic, you can get it on the flea for a decent price as well, depending on the time of the market, but it actually has good recoil reduction and it's positive in ergo. If we look at this gun down the range, we can see that upgrade and why it's worth it. You can see the jump and that initial burst is pretty insane. And if you are running 30 rounds, you need to be careful because you don't have a lot of rounds to work with. So something like this upgraded version here, which I'm about to talk about, the mid-tier build, is a lot more controllable. And you might be asking, what's different about this HK? And the first thing was obviously money, but it isn't really that much more expensive to make it that much better. The most important and overlooked feature is obviously the barrel. You have something like the 20-inch barrel, which is the meta, the 16.5, which is what I'm going to be recommending here today, the 14.5 stock, and then the two what I call meme barrels, which are basically just short HKs for fun. The 16.5-inch barrel, however, is the best bang for buck barrel for the HK. It does allow you to basically get a lot lower recoil, and the best part about it is if you're a low-level player and you have the flea market, you can actually buy this barrel for a decent price. We are going to be going for the Surefire compensator and the RC2 suppressor. Now this two together has already reduced our recoil by 10 vertically, and you can definitely see the difference. However, we can't use those best in slot handguards yet, as the 16.5 doesn't actually take that. But that's part of the reason that it is cheap on the flea. You can see someone actually sold me one for 14,000 rubles. This gun is 180,000 with the attachments, which is pretty nuts. But let's stop talking about budget, and if you care about money, we are going to be jumping straight into the meta. As soon as we're done on the barrel, we're going to jump straight for the compensator here, the AAC Blackout 5.56 compensator, and then the AAC SDN6 of sound suppressor. Now this thing is actually the best in slot suppressor combo, and if you pair this with a long barrel HK, the results are nuts. Jumping straight into the HK MRS 14-inch handguard, which is currently one of the best in slot, which also allows you to put on the CQR Hera arms. And although this grip actually did get nerfed, it's still one of the best ways to build the HK because the MRS handguard is quite cheap. Now obviously we're going to be slapping on the Christofine irons as they're nice and low profile. And then we're going to be switching over towards the charging handle, sticking with the age-old Raptor charging handle here for AR-15s. Going towards the stock, the time tried MOE with also the Magpul rubber butt. And switching over towards the pistol grip, we are going to be going for the Graal S here today, as it's the best ergo stats for the price. We got that recoil down an obscene amount, almost over 24 lower recoil. But the biggest issue is now that price. We are paying a lot, but that's where this gun really shines in the late game, when you don't really care about money and is an absolute laser beam of death. However, it has one major flaw when you build it this way, and that is if you are using drum mags, you lose a lot of ergo. And you can see it's almost negative 16 ergo with this build. So there is a couple cheeky tricks that I use when I personally run the HK. Obviously, you could use something like these best in slot Troy 30s, which are way better on the ergo. But if you build your HK slightly different, you can still use drums and not have to worry. So the first thing you're going to need to do for my personal build is we are going to be switching up to the Crux handguard, or the Strike Industries Crux handguard. Straight away with the 4.1 inch guide. And then after that, we are going to be settling for the Fortis Shift tactical grip. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We are up to 61 ergo without a mag. And that is a lot better than before. So even if you do use a drum magazine, it is still quite snappy. And that's where the HK really thrives, in my opinion. The reason I say it's for you late game ballers is because these are quite hard to find, this handguard. So stick with the MRS if you don't have max mechanic. But if you do, be my guest, guys. Try this thing out with the Troy 30 rounders, and it is absolutely nuts. It is very, very snappy and really good for switching and reacting to people quickly. Hey guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this build guide and would like to see this for another gun, let me know what that gun is in the comments down below. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching to the very end. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.